Let's be totally honest for a second. We all know the absolute struggle of trying to keep up with rising property taxes and rent. Especially, when you're living on a fixed retirement income. It's like this relentless squeeze on your wallet, right? Every single year, those bills arrive, and every year, a huge chunk of your hard-earned money just vanishes right out the door just to keep a roof over your head. Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful yet honestly often overlooked financial tool that could literally put hundreds of dollars right back into your pocket.
So, if you're sitting there nodding your head right now, I completely get it. You are absolutely not alone in this. But hey, here's the really good news. The state of Missouri actually has specific tax credits designed exactly for this situation. We're talking about direct financial relief, real money returned to you to offset those heavy property taxes, or, that portion of your rent that goes toward taxes.
To help you get that relief, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The property tax solution. 2. Checking your eligibility. 3. Gathering necessary documents. 4. Step-by-step application. 5. Mistakes in a case study. And finally, 6. Finding help and conclusion.
All right, Section 1, the property tax solution. Let's dive right into this because, well, there's a lot of confusing terminology floating around out there, and we need to be very precise about the exact type of tax relief Missouri actually offers you.
Okay, so there are two main programs in Missouri, and it is so easy to mix them up. On one hand, we've got the SB 190 Senior Freeze. Now, that's a county-by-county program that essentially freezes your property tax bill at its starting year level once you hit age 62. You apply for that one through your local county assessor. But the program we are focusing our entire explainer on today is the statewide circuit breaker. This is administered by the Missouri Department of Revenue, and it actually gives you a partial refund on the rent or real estate taxes you have already paid. The best part? It's a refundable credit. That means Missouri pays it out to you even if you owe absolutely zero state income tax. How great is that?
Moving on to Section 2, checking your eligibility. Let's transition right into seeing if you actually qualify for the circuit breaker by looking at the specific demographic and financial rules. So, the very first hurdle here is demographic. First off, you must be a Missouri resident for the entire calendar year. Beyond that, you got to fit into one of a few specific boxes. The standard rule is that you or your spouse were age 65 or older by December 31st of the tax year. But wait, there are some absolutely crucial exceptions here. If you or your spouse are 100% disabled, whether that's through civil standards or from military service, you qualify regardless of your age as long as you're over 18. And if you're a surviving spouse receiving Social Security benefits, that age requirement actually drops down to 60. Now, what's really interesting here is how the state distinctly separates homeowners from renters when we look at the financial rules. If you owned and occupied your home for the entire year, your total household income limit is $30,000 if you're single and $34,000 if you're married and filing combined. If you hit those metrics, your maximum credit can be up to $1,100. But let's look at renters or folks who only owned their home for part of the year. The income limits drop a bit to $27,200 for a single person and $29,200 for a married couple. And the maximum credit for a renter maxes out at $750. Still, a really great chunk of change. Section 3. Gathering necessary documents. So, if you fall within those limits, congratulations. You are well on your way to a refund. Let's move into the preparation phase, because I promise you, getting the right paperwork together up front is the absolute secret to a stress-free application. The Department of Revenue is going to need some proof. If you're a homeowner, you need a copy of your paid real estate tax receipt from your county collector. If you rent, you can't just send in a canceled check and call it a day. No, you need a Form 5674, which is a verification of rent paid or a signed statement from your landlord showing the gross rent you paid. And everybody will need proof of all income. That means digging up all those W-2s and every single 1099 form you received. Remember, you must report all household income. Yes, even non-taxable income like certain veterans benefits or child support. And this next point is super important. The Department of Revenue explicitly warns applicants about this. Do not file your return until you receive your Form SSA 1099 in January. It comes directly from the Social Security Administration, and it shows your net benefits for the entire year right there in Box 5. Having that exact document in your hands prevents calculation errors and, more importantly, stops your claim from getting delayed.
All right, on to Section 4, step-by-step application process. You've got your receipts, your 1099s, and your eligibilities confirmed. Let's transition into the actual filing process. I'm going to methodically break down how to get this paperwork done right.
Step 1 is choosing the right form.
And honestly, this trips a lot of people up. If your income is low enough that you aren't even required to file a standard Missouri income tax return, you just fill out a standalone form called the MOPTC. Easy enough, right? However, if you are filing a standard state return, that's the form MO140, you cannot use that standalone form. Instead, you have to use a schedule called the MOPTS and attach it directly to your tax return. Step 2 is carefully filling in your total net household income and the property taxes or rent you paid. For renters, the state calculates 20% of your net rent as your property tax equivalent. And finally, step 3 is submitting your claim, either by mailing it off to Jefferson City or by e-filing.
Now, the absolute most crucial point to remember here is the number 3. You can actually file for this credit up to 3 years back. Literally. If you're just hearing about this program today and you realize, wait, I qualified for the past couple years but never applied, it is not too late. You can submit claims for up to 3 previous years and still get that hard-earned money back.
Section 5. Mistakes and a case study. Of course, whenever there's state paperwork involved, things can get a little tricky, right? Let's look at some common errors applicants make and how you can avoid them, using a real-world example straight from the tax instructions.
A really common pitfall involves renters. Missouri is very strict about what actually counts as rent. So a standard apartment, meaning it has separate facilities for cooking and normal household functions, is totally eligible. But if you rent from a tax-exempt facility, you actually don't qualify for the circuit breaker. Why? Because that facility isn't paying property taxes to the state in the first place. Also, if you live in a nursing home and your rent is paid directly by grants or long-term care benefits that go straight to the facility, you cannot claim that as rent paid.
Let's see how this plays out in a slightly more complex scenario. Let's meet Ruth. So Ruth owns her home, but she lives on 10 acres of land, and she also runs a small business out of 15% of her house. Well, the circuit breaker only allows you to claim up to 5 acres of surrounding land. So Ruth has to use an assessor's certification, that's Form 948, to figure out the value of just the house and those eligible 5 acres. Let's say that comes to $500 in taxes. But because she uses 15% of her home for a business, she has to subtract that portion too. So she takes her $500, multiplies it by 85%, and claims $425 on her tax form. It's a perfect example of why you really need to carefully adjust your claim if your property is large or used for a home business.
Section 6. Finding help and conclusion. Now, if doing math like Ruth just made your head spin, please do not worry at all. If these forms feel overwhelming, there are incredible free resources available all across the state to do the heavy lifting for you. You absolutely do not have to pay a pricey accountant to get this credit. Missouri has an amazing community support network. Your regional area agencies on aging, or AAAs, have volunteers who are trained specifically to help seniors with this exact form. You can also tap into the IRS VITA program or tax counseling for the elderly clinics. They specialize in senior tax issues and pension reporting. Also, the AARP Foundation Tax Aid program runs free sites at local libraries and community centers across the state. And get this, you don't even have to be an AARP member to use them. And if you just have a quick question, organizations like Aging Ahead run hotlines to help guide you through it. So, here is your action plan. The deadline to file your current year claim is typically April 15th, but remember, you have that incredible 3-year grace period for past years. Start today. Dig up your real estate receipts, call your landlord for a rent statement, and put that SSA 1099 in a safe place the second it arrives in January. The state of Missouri has set this money aside specifically to help you stay in your home. Don't leave your hard-earned money just sitting on the table down in Jefferson City.
Before we officially wrap up, I need to remind you this explainer is strictly for informational and educational purposes and does not constitute legal or financial advice. Everyone's tax situation is totally unique, so please consult a tax professional or utilize one of those amazing free volunteer services we talked about for specific guidance on your personal situation. But I want to leave you with this final thought. If you knew there was hundreds of dollars with your name on it just waiting to be claimed, wouldn't you take 30 minutes today to go get it? Thank you so much for joining me, and best of luck with your application.